I grew up invisible in my own house, and honestly, I didn't even realize it until I was too old to fix it. My name's Brandon, I'm 21, and my little sister Audrey is 17. Growing up, she got everything she pointed at while I got lectures about being grateful for hand-me-downs. When she wanted a new laptop for school, Dad drove to Best Buy that same afternoon. When I needed a car to get to my community college classes, he told me real men earn their own way. I worked night shifts at a gas station for 2 years to buy a beat-up Honda Civic that barely started in winter. Audrey got a brand new Mazda for her 16th birthday with a big red bow on top. Mom cried happy tears that day while I stood in the driveway holding a cake I'd bought with my own money. Nobody even looked at me. That's when I started understanding that in this family, there was a favorite child, and then there was me. I managed to finish my associate degree in marketing from community college, paying for every credit hour myself with loans and whatever I earned from part-time jobs. I graduated with decent grades and a diploma that I thought would open doors. Instead, I spent the next 2 years bouncing between temp jobs that had nothing to do with my degree. I worked retail at a department store folding clothes for minimum wage. I did data entry at insurance offices where they treated temps like furniture. I sent out hundreds of resumes and got rejection after rejection. Meanwhile, Audrey's college fund just kept growing in some account they mentioned every Thanksgiving like it was a holy relic. Dad never once offered to help me get started in my field or connect me with anyone he knew. I was supposed to figure it all out alone while they paved every road for her. After dozens of rejections, I finally got a call back from Sterling Marketing Group. It was a real marketing coordinator position with benefits, salary, and actual room for growth. Sterling was known in the industry as a place where you could build a career if you proved yourself. The interview was scheduled for Tuesday at 2 in the afternoon. I requested the day off from my current temp job at an office supply company a month in advance. I bought a new tie with money I should have spent on groceries. This was my shot at finally using my degree and starting an actual career. Tuesday morning came, and I was ironing my only dress shirt when Mom knocked on my bedroom door. I was still living at home, saving every penny I could. She came in with that look she always had when she needed something from me. Audrey needed a ride to the mall because her car was getting detailed. I reminded her about my interview, and she actually rolled her eyes like I was being ridiculous. She went on about how Audrey was meeting college friends who were only in town for the day, how this was important networking for her future. I explained this interview could literally change my entire life, and she just got that disappointed face she always reserved for me. She wanted me to reschedule like these people owed me something. I told her no, and she left angry, slamming my door so hard the frame rattled. I went down to the garage around noon to leave early, wanting to get there with time to spare. Big mistake. Dad was waiting there, and the second he saw me, his whole face went dark. He started going off about how I was refusing to help my sister, how I was always making excuses whenever the family needed me. I tried explaining about the interview again, but he wasn't hearing it. He called me selfish, said I'd always put myself first. Something inside me just snapped after 21 years of this. I told him I was done being the family servant while Audrey lived like a princess. That's when he said something that made my blood run cold. He brought up this interview I'd had 2 years ago at a digital marketing startup downtown, asked if I remembered how my car broke down on the way there. Of course I remembered. I'd missed that interview and spent $800 fixing a destroyed transmission. He stepped closer with this sick smile on his face and admitted he'd poured sugar in my gas tank the night before. Said it real quiet like he was sharing a secret. He told me I was getting too independent, that the family needed me around to help with things. He'd sabotaged my car on purpose to keep me stuck in those dead-end temp jobs. I just stood there in complete shock staring at this man who was supposed to be my father. He'd actively destroyed my chances at a better life, and he was admitting it like it was nothing. Then Audrey walked in asking about her ride to the mall, and Dad's whole demeanor changed. He turned to her all sweet and gentle, told her not to worry. I said I was leaving for my interview. Dad's face transformed into something I'd never seen before. He started screaming about how I was choosing myself over family, how I was abandoning them when they needed me. I told him, yeah, that's exactly what I was doing. He grabbed my shirt and slammed me against the garage wall so hard my vision went white for a second. Mom came running, but she just stood there in the doorway watching it happen. Dad slammed me against the wall again and started yelling right in my face. He told me Audrey's future mattered and mine never did. Said I was always just the backup plan, the one who takes care of things while she gets to succeed. His breath smelled like coffee, and there was pure hatred in his eyes, like he'd been holding this in for years. The look on his face told me everything I needed to know about what I really meant to this family. I shoved him off as hard as I could and stumbled toward my car. My shoulder was screaming, and I could taste blood where I'd bit my lip during the impact. Audrey was crying on the front porch, but I didn't look back. I just got in my car and drove away. When I looked in the rearview mirror, there was already a dark bruise forming on my cheekbone, and my shirt was torn at the collar. I drove straight to that interview at Sterling Marketing Group looking like I'd just been in a fight, because I had. The woman interviewing me was named Diane, and she took one look at my face and asked if I was okay. I was exhausted from covering for them, so I just told her everything. I explained that my father had physically attacked me less than an hour ago because I'd refused to skip this interview to drive my sister to the mall. I told her I had nothing left to lose, no family to go back to. Just this one shot at finally starting the career I'd worked so hard for. She went quiet for a long moment, and I thought I'd blown it by being too honest. Then she asked me to tell her about my experience with social media campaigns, and we talked for an hour straight. She offered me the job before I even left the building. When I walked out of Sterling Marketing Group with a job offer in hand, I didn't go back home. I called my buddy Jake and asked if I could crash on his couch for a while. He didn't ask questions, just texted me his address. I drove there with my phone already starting to blow up with calls from my parents. For the first time in my entire life, I walked out completely. Not just from that house, but from the entire life they'd built to keep me small and useful. I didn't know what came next, but I knew I was finally free. I started at Sterling Marketing Group the following Monday, and for the first few weeks, I felt like I was living someone else's life. Diane turned out to be more than just my boss. She actually checked in on me and made sure I was settling in okay. The work itself was everything I'd hoped for. Real marketing campaigns with actual budgets and strategy meetings where people listened to my ideas. I was finally using my degree and getting paid a decent salary for it. Jake let me stay on his couch for almost 2 months while I saved up for a deposit. My first few paychecks went entirely to first and last month's rent on a new apartment across town where my parents wouldn't show up. The new place was smaller than I'd hoped and cost more, but it was worth it for the peace of mind. My phone kept blowing up with calls and texts from my parents, but I blocked their numbers after the first week. Mom sent emails saying I was tearing the family apart, and Dad left voicemails that swung between angry threats and weird attempts at apologies. I deleted everything without reading or listening. After about 2 months at my new place, I decided to apply for my own credit card to start rebuilding my credit. I'd never had one before, always used debit. The application was denied instantly. I didn't understand. I'd never had a credit card, never taken out any loans except my student loans which I was paying on time. I went home and pulled my credit report online and felt my stomach drop. There were 4 credit cards in my name that I'd never opened. The total debt was almost $47,000. Every single card was maxed out and several payments had been missed. My credit score was destroyed. The billing addresses were all my parents' house. The dates the cards were opened went back 3 years. I felt sick realizing what they'd done. I showed up at work the next day barely able to focus, and Diane noticed immediately. She pulled me into her office and I showed her the credit report. She looked genuinely angry and told me this was identity theft, that I needed a lawyer right away. She gave me the name of an attorney her brother had used. The lawyer's name was Monica, and she was no nonsense from the start. She looked over everything and told me straight up this was textbook identity fraud. My parents had stolen my identity to fund my sister's lifestyle. Looking at the charges, I could see payments to influencer coaching programs, plane tickets to California, hotel stays in Miami, boutique clothing stores. They'd been financing Audrey's entire Instagram lifestyle with credit cards opened in my name. Monica told me I could file a police report and press charges, or try to work it out privately, which would leave me responsible for the debt. She was clear the first option was the only one that made legal sense. I told her I needed time to think, even though I felt stupid for hesitating. 2 days later, my phone rang from a number I didn't recognize. It was Audrey. Her voice was shaky, and she asked if we could meet. I agreed to meet her at a coffee shop near my work. She showed up alone looking completely different, no designer clothes or perfect makeup, just a scared kid. She sat down and started crying before she even said anything. She told me she'd found something in Dad's office. She pulled out a folder full of papers. Inside were letters and printed emails. There were 3 different job offers addressed to me from 2 years ago, including one from that startup I'd missed the interview for when my car broke down. Audrey explained she'd been looking for documents in Dad's filing cabinet and found these hidden in the back. He'd been intercepting my mail. There were emails he'd sent from a fake account pretending to be me, declining positions and burning bridges before I even knew they existed. I sat there looking at proof that my father had spent years actively destroying my career opportunities. Audrey was sobbing, saying she didn't know about any of it until now. She told me she'd started noticing things over the past few months, how they kept buying her stuff she didn't ask for, how Dad got weird whenever she mentioned me. She'd confronted Mom, and they'd had a huge fight where Mom admitted some of what they'd been doing. That's when Audrey started digging and found the letters. She also told me she'd overheard them talking about credit cards in my name. She kept apologizing, and I told her it wasn't her fault, that she'd been a kid when most of this started. But I also told her about the lawyer and the identity theft. She went quiet for a moment, then told me something that broke my heart. She said once she realized they'd been stealing from me to pay for her life, she couldn't stay there anymore. She'd packed her bags the night before and asked if she could stay with me. I looked at my little sister, really looked at her, and saw someone who was trying to do the right thing despite everything. I told her yes. We left the coffee shop together and went to my apartment. It was cramped with both of us there, but it felt right. We decided right then to confront our parents together with Monica present. I wanted them to have one chance to admit everything before I involved the police. Monica set up a meeting at her office the following week. My parents showed up acting like victims. Monica laid out everything, the credit cards, the intercepted job offers, all of it. Mom started crying immediately, but Dad got defensive. He tried to claim it was all a misunderstanding, that they'd only done what was necessary to keep the family together. Monica recorded everything, and Dad slipped up multiple times, basically admitting to the fraud while trying to justify it. He said I would have left the family if I'd gotten those jobs, that someone needed to be around to help. Mom just kept crying and saying they'd done it for Audrey's future. When Monica asked if they were willing to take responsibility and repay the debt, Dad actually laughed. He said I should be grateful they'd raised me at all. I stood up and looked at both of them one last time. I told them they'd been stealing my future for years, but it was over now. Monica informed them we'd be filing a police report and pursuing criminal charges. Mom started begging, but Audrey and I walked out together. The next morning, I went with Monica to file the official report. The detective said financial fraud cases between family members were more common than people thought. He told me the investigation would take time, but with our evidence, there was a strong case. I left the police station and stood outside for a long time. The sun was shining, and people were walking past living their normal lives. For the first time ever, my future was actually mine, and whatever happened next, I was finally free to build the life I deserved. The investigation took 8 months, and during that time, I learned what it meant to actually live without fear. I cut off all contact with my parents completely, changed my phone number, and made sure they had no way to reach me. The first few weeks were the hardest because part of me kept expecting them to show up at my apartment or my work. But they never did. The police had made it clear that any contact could be considered witness intimidation. For once, the law was protecting me instead of them. I threw myself into work at Sterling Marketing Group and discovered that when you're not constantly dealing with family drama, you actually have energy for your career. Diane noticed the change and started giving me bigger projects. 6 months after I started, she promoted me to senior marketing coordinator with a significant raise. I moved out of my cramped apartment into a proper one-bedroom with actual windows that let in sunlight. Audrey came with me, and we each had our own space for the first time. Audrey got a job as a barista at a coffee shop and started taking online classes. She told me she dropped out of her expensive university because she couldn't stand knowing it was paid for with stolen money. She wanted to earn her own way for once. We'd become actual siblings during those months living together. We weren't perfect, but we figured out how to be there for each other. She'd apologized a lot in the beginning, and I kept telling her to stop. She'd been a kid. She hadn't asked them to destroy my life for her benefit. The case finally went to court almost a year after I filed the report. Monica had prepared me for what to expect, but nothing really prepares you for sitting in a courtroom while your parents are on trial. They tried to get the charges dropped, claimed it was all a misunderstanding, even tried to say I'd given them permission to use my identity. But the evidence was overwhelming. The credit card applications had their signatures. The intercepted mail was all documented. Monica had done her job well. The prosecutor offered them a plea deal to avoid jail time. They'd have to pay back every cent of the $47,000, attend financial counseling, and be on probation for 2 years. Any violation would mean prison time. They took the deal. I sat in that courtroom and watched my father agree to the terms. He looked smaller somehow, older and defeated. Mom cried through the whole thing. Neither of them looked at me once. The judge asked if I wanted to make a statement, and I stood up. I didn't yell or cry. I just told the court that for years these people had systematically sabotaged my life while pretending it was for my own good. I said they'd stolen my identity, my opportunities, and my trust. I said I wasn't there for revenge, just for justice and to make sure they couldn't do this to anyone else. When I sat back down, I felt lighter than I had in years. This wasn't about hurting them. It was about finally being free. After the sentencing, Monica told me the debt would be cleared from my credit report since it was proven fraud. It would take time, but my credit score would recover. She'd done everything pro bono because she said cases like mine were why she became a lawyer. I thanked her and walked out of that courthouse knowing it was really over. Audrey was waiting outside, and we just hugged for a long time without saying anything. We went to dinner that night and talked about the future. She told me about her plans to get certified in graphic design. I told her about a campaign I was leading at work. We talked like normal people with normal problems and normal dreams. The funny thing about karma is how it works. My parents spent years playing favorites, pouring everything into one child while sacrificing the other. They thought they were building something, securing Audrey's future at my expense. But in the end, their choices cost them both of us. They lost me when they decided my future didn't matter. They lost Audrey when she realized what they'd done to make hers possible. I'm honestly grateful that despite everything they did, despite all that entitlement and special treatment, Audrey came out of it with her head on straight. She could have stayed, could have let them keep funding her Instagram lifestyle with stolen money. Instead, she chose to walk away and build something real. That takes courage, especially when you've been raised to believe the world owes you everything. A year after I walked out with bruises on my face, I was standing outside Sterling's new downtown office. We'd expanded, and I'd been promoted again to marketing manager with my own small team. I had a savings account that was actually growing. I had an apartment I was proud of. I had a sister who'd become a real friend. I had a life that was completely mine. My phone buzzed with a text from Audrey. It just said, "You were right." We both got free, just in different ways. I smiled and put my phone away. The sun was setting over the city, and everything felt possible. I thought about that day in the garage when Dad slammed me against the wall and told me my future never mattered. I thought about all the years I'd spent believing I was the problem, that I was selfish for wanting more than they decided I deserved. I thought about the job offers I never knew existed and the opportunities they'd stolen before I even had a chance. But mostly I thought about the fact that none of it could touch me anymore. They tried to keep me small and dependent and useful. They tried to build their perfect family on the foundation of my sacrifices. But I'd walked away and built something better on my own. And Audrey had found the strength to do the same. The thing about freedom is that it doesn't feel like one big moment. It feels like 1,000 small ones. It's signing a lease in your own name. It's getting promoted because of your actual work. It's having coffee with your sister and laughing about something stupid. It's going to sleep without fear and waking up with plans. It's knowing that every choice you make is yours and yours alone. My father once told me that my future didn't matter and only Audrey's did. But in the end, choosing myself saved us both. I built the future they said I didn't deserve, and it turned out better than anything they could have planned. Audrey built hers too, on her own terms this time. That's the thing they never understood. You can't build something real on stolen foundations. But you can build everything you need on the truth. What do you think about this story? Let me know in the comments, drop a like, and don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories.